Welcome back, everybody, to The Creative Moment, Season 4, Episode 7. I'm Dante Bullhauer, the photographer, Jamie Bullhauer, the writer. Jersey season might be officially over, who's to say, but it's a cold one today. So, let's get right into it. All right, today we are talking everyday life and how to infuse creativity into that. So, obviously, you can kind of get stuck in the mundane a lot.
Well, and we're working.
Routine.
We're like full blown. I'm teaching, coaching, grading. I got papers to grade. You are just busy. And it's like, oh man, you can go for a while and not. You kind of feel depleted when you don't tap into your creativity.
So yeah, when you get lost in the weeds, it's busy season for a whole lot of industries right now. So we thought, what better way to kind of infuse a little rejuvenation into your daily life as you get kind of bogged down into a busier routine. So, do you want to go first?
Actually, let's go. I have actually quite a few things.
Okay.
But my first one is work-based idea a little bit, and was thinking and had read a while ago about the 80-20 rule that Google uses. Okay? And if you've never heard about this, Gmail early on was actually from this. And the 80-20 rule is that Google employees are expected to work 80% of the week and stuff, but they're given 20% of the time to work on things that interest them. And the story goes that Gmail was actually designed by somebody in their time that they were allowed to do what they felt they wanted to do that was interest to them. And so on that note, and even I am getting into the routine, school's in routine, I have a plan period, and I schedule 10 minutes of reading time in my plan period, no matter what. If it's at the beginning and end, I just set my timer, 10 minutes, and I read. I get a couple pages. But it is that schedule. And as work and as we get all involved in stuff, we do control our schedule. So my first suggestion, whatever it is, if you're a painter, if you are a writer, photographer, is, and I talked to, if you remember when you were a seniors about scheduling and dealing with that, and scheduling important things for them even as they go off to college and stuff. Like, sometimes you have to schedule the good things, because if all you do is schedule all the work, responsibilities, then that takes over and you never have the time for the things that really fill your soul. And so some people go by the seat of their pants a little bit. Scheduling is not their forte, but my first suggestion is you always try to, for the week or the month or whatever, schedule time for your creativity. And whether it's 30 minutes a week or something, that keeps you, it gives you something to look forward to. Schedule it. Yeah,
I need to be better about scheduling. I'm pretty good about scheduling.
Your work.
Not the time off. I can kind of do it in a day-to-day basis where I'm like, okay, I need to go to the bank today, so I'm going to one wheel to the bank. So that's kind of like listen to music. That's somewhat of a good thing. That's also a little work-related, but I can squeeze something fun into it. And it's a lot better with a dog because you can easily schedule like
you have to take
so,
it.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one. My first one or whatever, I don't know how many we'll get into, but it just kind of spit some off, is kind of along those same lines, but just making sure that you take breaks almost to like be bored or do nothing. When it gets so busy, and this is a little different for me as my work day to day is creative, or is supposed to be at least. So it's kind of
draining.
Yeah, it's a little interesting. So when I like need to schedule a good thing, it's usually non-creative, so that it kind of prevents that burnout type thing. So sometimes like it'll be taking my dog for a walk or one wheeling, whatever. Do it, or just going out on my balcony and just sitting and leaving my phone in here, computer, all that, and just sitting out there and just like feeling the fresh air and stuff. So for me, it's doing something non-creative because my day-to-day is, and almost most of the time it's just doing something like brainless.
Yeah.
Almost most of the time it's one-wheeling or something that I don't have to think about.
Yeah. And that's just as important, depending on your job. It is, though, at the heart of it, scheduling it, getting however small amounts of time. Because when we're running, and sometimes you're like that, especially state championship stuff. Like, we only, and I've said it before, I know my students get tired, we only have so much time and energy. That's it. And that's how come we can get in trouble. And then when we get burned out, then we're not creative at all.
Yeah, and there's times where I'm like, okay, I'll just take a break or whatever. And I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll just put my computer beside me. But then the whole time that I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, I should probably work on this, I need to do that. Like, so disconnecting, whether it's being in a different room or whatever, like scheduling it and actually taking that break seriously is important too. Because otherwise, when I do just set my computer down, usually 2 minutes later I pick it back up and I don't feel it, and then it's just like a struggle for like an hour or so.
And taking Mocha for a walk and stuff, like that's actually one of mine I had a little bit later because not everybody can. Winter comes, but especially poets and writers and other stuff, taking a walk and just being out, exercising a little bit, breathing in the fresh air, just letting your mind just go instead of being constrained is actually was one of mine. And Wordsworth did it. Stephen King does it. Like and it's scheduled. He talks about that a couple. And so that little bit of physical activity, which is nice, but also your brain just lets go, and you see a bird and you think about the bird, or you see the clouds and you just kind of enjoy the wonders of nature. So I'm piggybacking that aspect of having the non-creative moments to where you can just recharge and relax. So walking is one of mine. All with that. So but schedule it. You gotta schedule it. And stick to your schedule. Boy, we it's funny how we will schedule and deal with all the responsibilities and everything people expect of us, but our own selves, what's really important to us,
gets left on the back burner all the time.
Change it a little bit. Not that you have to let go of all your responsibilities, but change that mindset and schedule the important stuff for yourself and your creative work. So.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So my other one. Okay, so I'm gonna go against Stephen King here.
Okay, this might be a first.
Okay. So he I believe you should jot down when you're inspired, whatever it might be. I keep notebooks with me all the time. Actually, even I use my phone, and here's where using the phone, like the notes or the Google. So even when I'm walking, if I come up with a cool line or a cool idea, I jot it down.
Yep.
Stephen King says you don't need a notebook. It's only a place to collect bad ideas. And I totally disagree. Because your muse, your thoughts and stuff like that, life gets really busy, and I know that I have forgotten too many good poems because I was like, okay, I'll remember that. And no, you don't, because of the scheduling and stuff. And so I jot down everything. Now, does everything get back? Do I get back to it exactly? No, but there have been some awesome pieces that have come from taking a walk, jotting down the idea, and then I sit down in my zone and work. I think, I don't care what kind of artist you are, what you're creating, having a notebook and long-handing things is better than the digital, but that's for another time. Getting it down so that when you have your time to work on it, you can come back to it. And I don't care if it is kind of a bad idea per se, because we've talked about, what we do with the bad stuff and, but it happened, the muse struck. So our lives are just not, I can't go home and then type everything out. I have to have it recorded. So buy a creative notebook, keep it with you, put it in your computer bag. Mine's in my computer bag. Or on your phone, have a Google Doc or use your notes or whatever. And when it strikes, take that 30 seconds, jot it down. It's there, and you can come back and create something a little bit later.
Yeah, and a lot of times I notice when I do something like that, when I write something down or type it in my notes app, when I do have time to come back on it, it's much easier to then build off of that idea than when you just kind of keep it like in your head and you kind of have to rerun through what your thought process was in that moment. And so when you write that down and then you come back to it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember because of like how I typed it, how I wrote it, whatever. Now I can make that more of a, whether it's a story or whatever, you can build off it much easier and execute it a lot faster.
Yeah. And it's just one of the times I disagree. He's in a speech, he talked about that if a good idea is good, it's going to stay with you, like you mentioned. And I get that. But again, okay, I've got like 100 some things to grade this afternoon. My energy can't hold on to that idea.
And you don't always know if it's a good idea or not you're just writing it down because it's an idea that you have.
Yeah. So sorry, Stephen King. If you watch, I respect you, but I disagree about the notebook.
I do too. Yeah. Okay, so another one of mine is talking to people. Now, this sounds kind of ordinary, whatever. You talk to people every day, whatever. I don't, for the record. So it's much more refreshing for me. But just by talking to other people and getting new perspectives and just kind of letting the conversation happen, a lot of times can rejuvenate some creativity, whether it's an experience they had recently or just kind of like you say when you are writing a paper. If you don't know what to write, just start like scribbling on the paper, and then it just kind of creates that it removes that initial friction, gets your mind kind of going. That same thing typically works with me with just talking to people. So if I just make some random plan, okay, I'm going to go to the coffee shop with this person, just have a conversation, whatever, sit down for an hour. A lot of times during those conversations, just through the natural flow of it, I'll come up with, oh, this would be a cool thing to do. Oh, this would be a fun little thing. And then even going there, like you see something in the coffee shop that excites you or inspires you or whatever. Even if it's just a half hour, 10 minutes, whatever time you can spare in your everyday life to just have a conversation about something, I just personally, that helps me a lot for coming up with new ideas. And it helps if they're like in your industry, if they are another creative, because obviously they're kind of doing the same thing that you are. But a lot of times it's people that are they're living such different lives that it's a whole part of the world or whatever that I don't really see. And that kind of helps me get some new ideas rolling. Yeah,
because we spend our days, like our everyday life is pretty small, honestly. And it's a routine, and so when you get to hear about somebody else's job or life, or, you got to travel again to Colorado, but you got to
have a little microcosm of someone else.
You got to drive my dream car. It's just like, it gives you a different perspective, and that ignites our creativity. And I hadn't thought of that. That's actually a really, I like that.
Sometimes I come with the heat.
Hey,
value. I talk about it all the time now. Value on this podcast. This time it came from me for once. So,
so the other aspect that I had, and this podcast hopefully is to be learning. And I know we've covered that, so I'm not going to spend much time. But even if you're reading a book and you agree with a lot, but then in this case of me disagreeing with Stephen King, it like generates thought. It generates ideas. And like when I saw his speech on YouTube about this, and I'm just like, no, like I reacted because, and that's good. And so getting it's not as powerful as talking to other people. I honestly do that. I never thought about how that really does inspire, and you get ideas, and that interchange. Because learning is kind of a one way. The book or the podcast or stuff, it gets you going, but you don't have anybody to share with and to hash out your thoughts. But learning is one of them. And like I said, in my plan period, I got 10 minutes. I set my timer, 10 minutes, and I read. And I don't always read stuff. I read fiction and things, but it's scheduled opportunity. And sometimes I listen to podcasts, during my plan period and things too, just to get ideas. But learning, it's a way to build and get you creative ideas rolling.
Yeah, that kind of flows into the next one I had, was just kind of looking at other people's creative ventures or their kind of like products, things. Because you do learn so much from them, but sometimes when you get caught in a little rut of, I feel like I'm doing the same thing, like it's not, the creativity is not branching out. Just going and looking at someone else's Instagram profile or someone else's body of work or a new book or something, that can infuse creativity. And it's really easy you don't need even like 10 minutes. You can just scroll through a couple photos on Instagram and be like, oh, that's really cool how they change those colors and things like that. So kind of along that same vein, you're learning from their work, but in a little bit of a different, you're not, I guess, the purpose is not to learn, kind of. It's to just get a different view of, kind of like talking to people. You just get kind of a wider array of creative things that you can then go plug back into your creativity.
Yeah. So my last one is a little bit philosophical. And it is and you got to practice this, because even I sometimes miss the opportunity because I'm self-conscious of it, is though to step out of your norm, whether it is to just take a crazy photo with your phone or whatever, or if it's to jot down a line that's in your head, or to stop and just appreciate something. And this happens as we get inspired or we have thoughts. And so the other day I was walking, and I thought it would be really cool to get a sunflower with the sun shining behind it.
I saw that photo.
And so it didn't work. I just couldn't get it. But I'm sitting here, I'm on my walk, and I'm going, and I'm like, okay, because I had to cross our busy street. I ended up taking the photo. It still didn't work, but I had to actually trudge down. It was into the cornfield. But I'm at the corner to our house, and I'm sitting there, which I think a lot of us do in creative moments, like just doing something. It's like, okay, I'm walked, I'm tired, I want to get a Gatorade, I'm just going to turn. It takes habit. It's a habit too. And I don't always do this, but I do it a lot, to where I'm just like, never mind, let's just do this. So I'm walking and traffic's going by, and I'm looking, and I go across, and I try to get the photo. It just, there was so many sunflowers behind it. I couldn't get just the sun to burst behind it, but I still took the photo, and it took an extra 5 minutes maybe. But by doing that, when you're struck, when the muse comes, there's a reason. There's a reason for whatever, if it's just your stress coming out, inspiration. And a lot of the times in our everyday life, what we do is the routine. instead of taking just a couple more minutes or just relaxing for a second or opening up the journal and writing it down or sketching it out, and we just get on and we let that moment pass. Now, I'm not a great photographer or anything. The photo didn't quite work. It's still kind of a cool photo with that. But I also practice breaking out of the box and that self-consciousness, because I know that that's part of it. It's like, well, what are people going to think? Or what is, if I say hello and how was your day to the cashier, you're not sure what's going to happen, but all of a sudden you can get a minute or so there of conversation with somebody, and maybe that chance to talk to them and have a seed of a possibility because you talked to them instead of just sitting there for a minute and a half going as they beep the thing. So step out when you are hit with an idea. I had only seen parts of it, but it's kind of the idea of the Yes Man Jim Carrey movie. Remember where he has to say like yes to everything for a week or something?
Okay.
I mean, it's that idea. It's like, if you're inspired to do something creative, if you can actually do, sketch, whatever, and then let it go, and then get back into the routine. I got home, I had to cook dinner, but I'm glad I stepped out and put that photo in. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So my last one's just a more drastic take on that. And a lot of times we think we don't have very much flexibility in our routine, but a lot of times if we really deep dive, we can make something work. And so my kind of final one is like, find whether it's a day or a half day or a week or whatever you can really manage to just like throw a wrench in your routine, do something completely different. I am a big advocate of like new experiences are what kind of keeps you, I don't want to say youthful because I'm a youth, but
you're getting up there in age now.
But kind of just keeps you juiced to keep, even if it's just keep going through your routine. New experiences a lot of times can help just keep that energy up. And so if there's like just like a half day or something, maybe I can go out to eat this day at somewhere that I've never been before, or I can, I've been trying to take my dog out for a different walking path every like 2 or 3 days or whatever, just to see if there's like spots she likes more or whatever, but just to kind of have a little bit of a different routine type thing. And so if you can find kind of a bigger time slot than the 5 minutes that creativity strikes, I think that can just really rejuvenate.
And you have to bust out of that box idea. I mean, it's not like, but because you have to go against your routine and you got to schedule it, but you're like,
make the effort
and step out of what is comfortable to a degree. However, mine happens to be small. Yours, and you like your trips.
Take big swings.
Take big swings, and mine is smaller simply because I got families,
5 other people to be responsible for.
But yet still, we do. We have done. But yeah, the big swing. I would totally agree. You are just value. Like, I love the big swing aspect.
Yeah, and it like. Going out to eat somewhere new is not necessarily a big, but it can do a lot for you. And it is kind of almost more about just, it is so easy to say, oh, well, I have food here. I can like be so much easier.
Or my favorite restaurant I know I trust.
I'm going to order the Rivals burger at Rivals.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to go to, I've never been to the Blue Fork right over there. I'm going to go there or something.
Not yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you do.
I've had a burger from there. Someone wasn't going to eat there, so I ate it. But irrelevant. But something just that takes an effort to change your routine, even for a day or something, really helps. Then you come back and you're like, wow, that was a great experience.
Sometimes it isn't so great. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think that's important too, because life, as we know, as we've just dealt with our own personal stuff going on, creativity though also can come from the rough stuff. It's just, and that's a part of life. And I think part of your big swing though too, and my little one, is that sometimes we think our life is just that routine. It's not. It is the muse hitting us. It is the negative emotions, the positive emotions, the stepping out of our comfort zones. And that energizes us, but also gives us fodder for our creativity.
Yeah. Season 4, episode 7 in the books, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost on season 5 already. So hope you guys enjoyed. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all the places. If you're on Spotify and you want to see us in video form, head to YouTube. If you're on YouTube and sometimes you can't watch it because you're commuting or whatever, hit up Spotify. We're also on Apple Podcasts, all the things. So if you like our show, our podcast, go ahead and like it, subscribe it, comment.
Share it with others.
Yep, share it all over the place. We're on Twitter and Instagram, all the things. So with that, season 4, episode 7 of The Creative Moment is in the books, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.